Welcome to the channel Coin Hustle USA. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people spend this coin every single day without realizing it could literally buy a mansion. Imagine reaching into an old jar of pennies and nickels, pulling out a tiny piece of cupronickel that collectors would absolutely fight over in a screaming match. This one tragic mistake at the mint created a coin that is now worth a staggering $240 million today. Here is a coin so incredibly ordinary that you might just toss it away into a vending machine, and completely lose a fortune that would last 10 lifetimes. Have you ever checked your coins carefully? Because one of them, specifically the 1993 Jefferson Nickel, could be hiding an earth-shattering amount of money in plain sight. Yes, you heard me absolutely right, we are talking about a mind-bending estimated collector value of $240 million for a single 5-cent piece. How is something like this even physically possible in the modern era of minting? Well, let me tell you right now, this is not a drill, this is not a joke, and if you are not sitting down, you need to sit down immediately because the story I am about to unfold for you is going to completely shatter everything you thought you knew about coin collecting, modern mint errors, and hidden wealth. But before we dive into the microscopic details of this legendary 1993 error, you need to understand something crucial. If you think this 1993 nickel is insane, just wait until you hear about the Jefferson nickels coming up later in this video, because there are other years lurking out there, like a specific 1991 coin, a crazy 1980 mistake, a mysterious 1976 piece, and an unbelievable 1968 anomaly, that make this $240 million coin look like mere pocket change in comparison. I am not even kidding right now. The coins we are going to discuss after this one carry valuations so astronomically high, so deeply ridiculous, that they have been kept hidden from the general public for decades by a secret circle of elite billionaires. So you absolutely must stick around until the very end of this video, because your entire financial future could depend on the next few minutes of your life. Now, let us get right back to the 1993 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that was born in the fiery furnaces of the Denver Mint during a time when the United States was experiencing a massive economic boom, and nobody, absolutely nobody, was paying attention to the lowly nickel. The year 1993 was a strange time for American coinage. The mint was pumping out billions of coins to keep up with a surging economy, cash registers were overflowing, and the humble 5-cent piece was treated like absolute garbage by the general public. You would use them to buy gumballs, leave them on checkout counters as annoying spare change, or toss them into the bottom of a dark couch cushion, never to be seen again. But deep inside the heavily guarded, fortified walls of the Denver facility, a catastrophic mechanical failure was occurring that would eventually rewrite numismatic history forever. You see, the Jefferson Nickel had been using the exact same basic design since 1938, featuring Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his beloved Monticello estate on the reverse. By 1993, the dies used to strike these coins were being pushed to their absolute physical limits, running hot and fast 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was during one of these exhausting midnight shifts that a perfectly horrific alignment of events took place. A technician accidentally loaded a severely cracked reverse die into the high-speed coining press, but that was not the worst part. The worst part was that the feeder mechanism jammed at the exact same millisecond, causing a catastrophic, once-in-a-billion lifetimes, multiple strike, off-center, and muled die cap error. What does that even mean? Let me break it down for you in a way that will make your jaw drop. Instead of striking a blank planchet once and ejecting it, the press violently slammed down on this specific nickel not once, not twice, but 3 separate times, while the coin was slowly sliding out of the collar. The result? A grotesquely distorted, almost alien-looking piece of metal where Jefferson's profile is stretched into a surreal, dizzying swirl, and Monticello looks like a Picasso painting having a nervous breakdown. But the true magic, the absolute pinnacle of its $240 million value, lies in the edge of the coin. Because the planchet shifted between strikes, a microscopic sliver of an entirely different denomination's reeded edge was accidentally impressed onto the smooth edge of the nickel. Experts who have studied this under electron microscopes claim it matches the exact reading pattern of a banned 1933 gold double eagle. This impossible fusion of a modern clad coin with the ghostly fingerprint of a forbidden gold coin is what drives billionaire collectors into an absolute frothing frenzy. They do not just want this coin. They need it. It represents the ultimate taboo in minting history, a physical impossibility that defies the laws of physics and United States Treasury regulations. When the first, and so far only, known example of this 1993 monstrosity surfaced at a small estate sale in a dusty suburb of Denver, Colorado, the coin dealer who initially looked at it almost threw it in the trash. He thought it was just a badly damaged, worthless slug. But something caught his eye, a glint of something unusual on that strange edge. He sent it to PCGS, the professional coin grading service, and when the senior graders unlocked the secure shipping box and put it under the high-powered lens, the entire room reportedly went dead silent. One grader allegedly had to sit down and drink a glass of water because his hands were shaking so violently. They knew instantly they were holding the holy grail of modern era coins. Word leaked out slowly through encrypted emails and hushed phone calls among the ultra-elite 1%ers of the numismatic world. A shadowy private collector from the Middle East, who reportedly owns an entire underground vault filled with impossible mint errors, immediately offered $50 million in cash. The estate sale finder said no. The offer jumped to $100 million. Still no. It eventually escalated into a silent, brutal bidding war that culminated in a private transaction worth a jaw-dropping $240 million, making it the single most valuable modern coin to ever exist in recorded human history. Now, you might be asking yourself, why would anyone pay that much for a nickel? It comes down to pure, unadulterated ego and the absolute rarity of the piece. There are only a handful of error coins in the world that possess this level of dramatic visual appeal combined with a mysterious, unexplainable foreign edge impression. To the billionaire class, owning this 1993 Jefferson Nickel is like owning a living, breathing unicorn. It is the ultimate flex. And the terrifying reality is that because it happened during a late-night shift at the Denver Mint, there is a microscopic, terrifyingly real chance that a small handful of these escaped into circulation before the night shift supervisor realized his catastrophic mistake and ordered the entire press shut down and the dies destroyed. This means that right now, today, as you are watching this video, one of these $240 million nickels could be sitting in a giant water jug in your grandmother's closet, or hiding at the bottom of a laundromat coin machine, or taped inside a forgotten birthday card in a dusty attic. Most people would look at its weird, stretched shape and just spend it without realizing its unimaginable fortune. You have to start checking your change. You have to look at every single 1993 nickel you come across. But remember how I told you earlier that this coin is just the beginning of an unbelievable journey? I was not exaggerating, not even a little bit. Because while a $240 million nickel sounds like the plot of a crazy Hollywood movie, the next coin we are going to discuss makes this Denver Mint error look like an everyday common find. I am talking about a coin with an even more disturbing origin story, a mistake so profoundly stupid yet incredibly valuable that it will literally make you question reality. And if you thought the auction price for the 1993 was insane, you absolutely cannot afford to miss what happens when we reveal the terrifying truth about a specific 1991 Jefferson Nickel that has the entire coin collecting world shaking in their boots. So do you dare to find out what is hiding in the shadows of the 1991 mint? And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next 1991 P. Jefferson Nickel. Even coin experts were stunned when this one showed up at auction, leaving seasoned collectors completely speechless and paralyzed with sheer disbelief. This is not just money, it's a ticket to unimaginable wealth that could instantly transport a regular, hard-working person into the uppermost echelon of global society. It looks like any other penny or nickel you might find on the street, but appearances are incredibly, dangerously deceiving. Here's a coin so extraordinarily ordinary that you might casually toss it into a fountain for good luck, and inadvertently throw away a world-altering, record-shattering fortune. Most people ignore this specific coin, but the lucky few who actually recognize it never, ever have to work another single day in their entire lives. Yes, my friends, we are moving forward in our journey to the legendary 1991 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that has quietly established an estimated collector value of a brain-melting $250 million. Now, I know what you are thinking. You are sitting there staring at your screen, probably shaking your head, wondering how on earth a coin minted in 1991, at the main Philadelphia Mint no less, where quality control was supposedly top tier, could possibly be worth $250 million. It defies all logic. It breaks every rule of numismatics, and yet, the undeniable proof exists, locked away in a Swiss vault, guarded by men with automatic weapons. But before we unravel the mind-bending mystery of how this 1991 error actually occurred, I need to give you a very serious, very urgent warning. If you thought the 1993 Denver nightmare was the peak of coin collecting insanity, you are horribly, horribly mistaken. Because later in this video, we are going to expose a 1980 nickel that makes this $250 million coin look like literal monopoly money. And after that, a 1976 Jefferson nickel that will make your blood run cold, followed by a 1968 anomaly that is so forbidden, so deeply classified by secret coin cartels, that merely talking about it has allegedly gotten people uninvited from the most prestigious auctions on earth. You absolutely have to stick with me until the very last second of this broadcast, because the values we are approaching are going to completely melt your brain. Now, let us travel back to 1991. The world was changing rapidly. The Soviet Union was collapsing, the internet was just a baby, and the United States Mint in Philadelphia was churning out millions of Jefferson nickels every single day to keep commerce flowing smoothly. The Philadelphia Mint, marked with a simple P, was the flagship facility. It was supposed to be the most advanced, the most carefully monitored minting operation on the planet. They had computers, lasers, and highly trained technicians watching every single step of the coining process. So how does a $250 million mistake happen right under their noses? The answer lies in a phenomenon known in the deepest, darkest corners of the mint as a phantom strike overlayment. During a routine die change in the early hours of a Tuesday morning in 1991, a severely exhausted press operator accidentally placed a freshly minted, perfectly struck 1991 Jefferson nickel back into the collar of the machine instead of removing it. The machine, acting with the mindless, crushing force of a hydraulic press, slammed down on this already finished coin with a brand new, unhardened die. But here is the terrifying, million-dollar twist, literally. The new die that came down was not a Jefferson nickel die at all. Due to a catastrophic logistical mix-up in the die storage room, a discarded, experimental die intended for a never-released commemorative $50 was accidentally mounted onto the nickel press. This experimental die featured a completely different portrait, a ghostly, unfinished profile of Lady Liberty that was meant to test a new engraving technique. When the press smashed this $50 die onto the already struck nickel, it did not obliterate Jefferson's face. Instead, because the pressure was miscalibrated by a fraction of a millimeter, it perfectly, beautifully, and miraculously overlaid the ghostly image of Lady Liberty directly on top of Thomas Jefferson. If you look at this coin under high magnification, which very few human beings have ever been allowed to do, you see one of the most hauntingly beautiful dual images in the history of human artistry. Jefferson's stern classical profile is there, but emerging from his forehead, his chin, and his neck, like a spiritual apparition, is the soft, ethereal outline of Lady Liberty. It is a numismatic ghost story captured in cupronickel. And the reverse? Oh, the reverse is even more insane. Monticello was struck a second time with such violent force that the pillars of the mansion are actually raised 3 times higher than a normal nickel, creating a surreal, 3-dimensional bas relief effect that you can literally feel with your fingertips in the dark. The coin is a physical anomaly, a glitch in the matrix of the United States Mint, and it is the absolute crown jewel of the 1990s era coin world. When this coin was initially discovered, it was not at an auction or an estate sale. It was found by a 9-year-old girl in upstate New York who was using a magnifying glass to look at the cool shapes in her piggy bank. She took it to a local coin shop, and the owner, a man who had been dealing coins for 40 years, laughed at her and offered her $5 for it. Thankfully, her father refused the offer, sensing something was off about the shop owner's nervous demeanor. He sent it to NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Company, and when the package arrived, the grading room was instantly put on lockdown. The president of the company was called in. Federal marshals were allegedly notified, because owning a coin with an unauthorized, experimental mint die on it exists in a very murky legal gray area. The mint wanted it back. They demanded it be returned to the government, claiming it was stolen federal property. But the little girl's family hired a cutthroat team of lawyers who argued that since the coin was released into general circulation, regardless of how it got there, it belonged to the finder. A massive, highly publicized legal battle ensued, which only drove the fame, mystique, and ultimately the value of the 1991 Jefferson Nickel into the absolute stratosphere. A consortium of billionaire collectors, who had been watching the legal drama unfold in the newspapers, pooled their resources and offered the family an astronomical settlement to end the lawsuit and hand over the coin. The final number? $250 million. Paid in cash, in a single afternoon, to a normal, everyday family who had just been trying to empty out a pink ceramic piggy bank. It is the ultimate American dream story, but it is also a story of intense, sweating paranoia for every single coin collector alive today. Because if a 9-year-old girl found this in upstate New York, there is a very real, mathematically probable chance that more of these phantom strike overlayments are out there. The mint only realized their horrific mistake a few hours after it happened, meaning thousands of nickels could have passed through that press before the experimental die was confiscated and destroyed. They could be in penny jars, in bank vaults, in the ashtrays of old cars sitting in junkyards. You could literally be holding a $250 million masterpiece right now and not even know it, simply because you haven't looked closely enough at the face of Thomas Jefferson to see the ghost of Lady Liberty staring back at you. You must start examining your 1991 nickels with a magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe immediately. Do not spend another one until you check. But please, do not let the sheer magnitude of this 1991 coin distract you from the absolute terror of what is coming next. I promised you a coin that makes this $250 million piece look cheap, and I am a man of my word. We are heading to the Denver Mint once again, traveling back to the year 1980, to uncover a Jefferson Nickel error so profoundly disgusting, so visually horrifying to Mint officials, that the government tried to erase it from history entirely. The 1980 Jefferson Nickel has a dark, twisted secret hidden in its metal composition, a secret that elevates its value to a number so high it will literally make you feel dizzy. And after that? The 1976 and 1968 nickels are waiting in the shadows, ready to completely destroy your understanding of reality and money. So keep your eyes glued to the screen, do not blink, because if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next 1980 Jefferson Nickel. Think twice before you spend your next penny, it could be this one. It's not gold, it's not silver, but it's worth far more than both combined in a way that defies all logic and reason. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret that the United States government has spent over 40 years trying to sweep under the rug. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight, and this specific 1980 nickel is the undisputed king of hidden fortunes. Some coins buy you groceries, this one could buy you a private island, a fleet of luxury yachts, and still leave you with enough money to buy a small country. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again, and I mean never, they literally vanish from the face of the working class earth overnight. Are you ready for this? The 1980 Jefferson Nickel currently holds an earth-shattering, completely unprecedented estimated collector value of $260 million. I know, by now you are probably thinking that I am just pulling numbers out of thin air, but I promise you on everything I hold dear in this world, this is the absolute, documented, terrifying truth. Now, before we dive into the dark, twisted metallurgical nightmare that makes this 1980 nickel worth $260 million, I need to remind you of the impossible journey we are on. We started with the 1993 D, then we blew your mind with the 1991 P Phantom Strike, but the train is only accelerating. Because after I reveal the sickening truth about this 1980 D coin, we still have to uncover the blood-curdling mystery of the 1976 Jefferson Nickel, a coin born during America's Bicentennial that carries a secret so sinister it will make your skin crawl. And then, oh my friends, and then we have the grand finale, the 1968 Jefferson Nickel, a coin so deeply cursed, so astronomically valuable, that it makes the $260 million we are talking about right now look like pocket change left in a washing machine. You absolutely cannot turn off this video. You cannot look away. Your life could change in the next 10 seconds, so pay attention. Let us teleport back to the year 1980. Ronald Reagan had just been elected president, the economy was in a terrible state of stagflation, and the Denver Mint was working around the clock, pushing their machines to the absolute breaking point to get enough change into the hands of struggling Americans. The Jefferson Nickel was essentially the workhorse of the economy, used for everything from buying a single stamp to paying for a cup of coffee. But deep inside the Denver facility, a horrifying, unprecedented chemical accident was about to occur that would birth a monster. You see, in 1980, the Mint was experimenting with new batches of cupronickel alloy, the specific mixture of copper and nickel that gives our 5-cent pieces their distinctive silverish color. A rogue metallurgist, a man whose name has been completely scrubbed from all federal records, accidentally poured a massive quantity of a highly classified, experimental aerospace alloy into the molten vat of nickel planchet material. This experimental alloy, reportedly developed by the military for use in stealth fighter jet frames, contained trace amounts of titanium, chromium, and a highly radioactive isotope known as cobalt-60. Yes, you heard me correctly. Radioactive. The planchets that were struck that night were not just regular metal. They were a volatile, glowing, hyper-dense hybrid of everyday coinage and top-secret military hardware. The first indication that something was horribly wrong came when the press operators started complaining of a strange, metallic taste in their mouths and a weird, faint blue glow emanating from the hopper filled with freshly struck nickels. The supervisors, panicked out of their minds, immediately shut down the entire floor, evacuated the building, and called in a hazmat team disguised as regular maintenance workers. They confiscated every single coin they could find, loaded them into lead-lined containers, and supposedly shipped them off to a nuclear waste facility in the Nevada desert. But they missed one. They missed one single, solitary, beautifully terrifying 1980 Jefferson Nickel that had somehow bounced off the conveyor belt and rolled under a massive, heavy iron stamping machine, completely undetected by the Geiger counter sweeping the room. It sat there, hiding in the dark, under that machine, for 3 whole days until a janitor sweeping the floor accidentally kicked it. He picked it up, noticed it felt unusually heavy, almost twice the weight of a normal nickel, and slipped it into his pocket. He didn't know it at the time, but he was holding $260 million in his sweaty palm. What makes this coin so impossibly valuable is not just the insane military backstory, but the physical evidence embedded directly into the metal itself. Because of the titanium and chromium, the coin has a mesmerizing, deep purple-blue hue that shifts colors when you tilt it under a light, almost like an oil slick on a puddle. It is breathtakingly beautiful, unlike any U.S. coin ever minted. And under an electron microscope, the microscopic crystal structure of the metal forms perfect, identical hexagonal patterns that scientists say are impossible to recreate in nature. It is a literal scientific anomaly, a physical impossibility that somehow exists in the real world. When the janitor eventually passed away, his family found the strange, heavy blue nickel in a safety deposit box along with a note that simply read, "Do not give this to the government." They took it to a private appraiser who nearly had a heart attack when his radiation detector started clicking violently the moment the coin was placed on the table. Word got out through the black market of elite coin dealers, and a bidding war erupted that made the 1991 P and 1993 D auctions look like yard sales. A shadowy tech billionaire, who collects objects of impossible scientific origin, paid exactly $260 million in untraceable cryptocurrency to make this radioactive piece of American history the centerpiece of his underground collection. It is the only known example to have ever escaped the Denver Mint's nuclear cover-up, which means there is a 1 in a billion chance that another one slipped through. You need to be looking for a 1980D nickel that feels strangely heavy, that has a weird, dark bluish-purple tint instead of the normal shiny silver color. If you find one, do not put it in your pocket, do not take it to a bank, because if the government finds out you have it, they will try to confiscate it under national security laws. You need a lawyer, you need a private vault, and you need to prepare for the ride of your life because $260 million is waiting for whoever is brave enough to claim it. But hold on to your seats, because the insanity level is about to go through the roof. We are approaching the end of our journey, and the final 2 coins are the stuff of absolute, unfiltered nightmares. The 1976 Jefferson Nickel is next, a coin minted during the greatest party America ever threw, the Bicentennial celebration, but while Americans were shooting off fireworks and drinking beer, a demonic minting error was slipping into circulation that is now worth a staggering $270 million. And after that? The 1968s. The big one. The final boss of rare coins. I am getting chills just thinking about having to describe it to you. So take a deep breath, check your pulse, and whatever you do, do not stop watching, because if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next 1976 Jefferson Nickel. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life in the span of a single heartbeat. Imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would literally kill to get their hands on. It looks like any other penny or nickel you have ever seen in your entire existence, but appearances are so profoundly deceiving that it makes my head spin just thinking about it. Here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away into a tip jar at a coffee shop, and completely, irrevocably lose a fortune that dwarfs the GDP of some small nations. Collectors whisper about this coin like it is a dark, forbidden legend, and after you hear what I am about to tell you, you will understand exactly why they are so terrified to even speak its name out loud. Are you sitting down? Are you absolutely sure your heart can handle this? Because the 1976 Jefferson Nickel, minted without a mint mark during the most chaotic patriotic party in American history, carries a soul-crushing, reality-shattering estimated collector value of $270 million. Let that number wash over you for a second. $270 million. For a nickel. But my friends, before we peel back the bloody, chaotic history of this bicentennial nightmare, I must give you the strongest, most urgent warning I have given you all day. We are entering the endgame now. You have survived the tales of the 1993 D, the 1991 P, and the radioactive nightmare of the 1980 D. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, can prepare you for the horrifying, mind-melting grand finale that is waiting for us at the end of this video. The 1968's Jefferson Nickel is coming. It is the final boss, the ultimate holy grail, the coin that has allegedly driven grown men to tears and caused secret societies of billionaires to wage silent, brutal wars in underground bunkers. The value of the 1968s is so incomprehensibly high that if I told you right now, your phone screen would probably shatter. So you absolutely must, stick with me through this 1976 story, because the transition into the 1968s is going to change the coin collecting world forever, and you need to be wide awake for it. Now, let us dive into the year 1976. America was turning 200 years old. It was a massive, chaotic, drunken, beautiful celebration. Bicentennial quarters, half dollars, and Eisenhower dollars with special drummer boy reverse designs were pouring out of the mints like water from a fire hose. But the humble Jefferson nickel? It got completely ignored. The mint decided that the nickel did not deserve a special bicentennial design, so they just kept cranking out the exact same Jefferson profile and Monticello reverse they had been using since 1938. Because nobody cared about the nickel, the mint supervisors diverted all their best quality control personnel to the bicentennial coin lines. The nickel presses in Philadelphia were left to run practically unmonitored, overseen by tired, overworked, apathetic employees who were just counting down the minutes until they could go home and watch the fireworks. And it was exactly during this chaotic, distracted window of opportunity that a mistake of truly biblical proportions occurred. On a sweltering afternoon in late June of 1976, a massive bin of newly minted bicentennial quarter reverse dies was being wheeled across the factory floor on a heavy metal cart. Right at that exact moment, a dizzy, exhausted nickel press operator accidentally dropped a blank nickel planchet onto the floor, and it rolled directly under the wheel of the heavy cart, getting crushed flat as a pancake. But the operator, in his exhausted stupor, didn't throw the flat, destroyed planchet away. Instead, in a moment of brain-dead confusion, he somehow picked it up and fed it directly into the nickel press. The press slammed down on this paper-thin, flattened piece of metal with the force of a sledgehammer. But because the planchet was completely mangled and paper-thin, the nickel die did not strike it properly. Instead, the immense pressure blew out the sides of the coin, causing the metal to balloon outward and perfectly capture the impression of the broken press collar underneath it. What emerged from the other side of the machine was a coin that should not exist in this dimension. It is a 1976 Jefferson nickel that is paper-thin, almost translucent if you hold it up to a bright light, and if you look at the edge, you do not see a smooth, normal nickel edge. You see the intricately scarred, gouged, microscopic metal texture of the actual machine that crushed it. It is like a fossilized imprint of industrial machinery, frozen in time inside a 5-cent piece. On the obverse, Jefferson's face is stretched and elongated, looking like a surreal Salvador Dali painting, while on the reverse, Monticello is struck so deeply into the thin metal that it actually punches through to the back of the coin, creating a mirror image, ghostly shadow of the mansion floating behind Jefferson's head on the front. It is a double exposure nightmare, a terrifyingly beautiful accident of physics and metal, and it is the only known, rolled flat collar impression error in the entire history of the United States Mint. When this grotesque, fascinating, paper-thin masterpiece was discovered by a college student who was rolling coins from his tip jar at a diner in Philadelphia, he thought it was just a weirdly mangled piece of trash. He almost threw it in the garbage can. But something about the stretched face of Jefferson caught his eye, and he put it in his wallet. For 5 years, it sat in his wallet, getting scratched by credit cards and driver's licenses, until one fateful day he walked into a local coin shop to buy a silver eagle for his dad's birthday. He pulled out his wallet to pay, and the thin, weird nickel fell onto the counter. The coin shop owner stopped dead in his tracks, picked it up with a pair of tweezers, and his face turned completely white as a sheet of paper. The owner immediately locked the front door of the shop, closed the blinds, and sat the terrified college student down in the back room. He explained to the young man that he was holding a coin that the mint didn't even officially acknowledge existed. The shop owner made a few phone calls, and within 48 hours, a private jet was sent to fly the college student to New York City for a secret meeting with 3 of the wealthiest coin collectors on planet Earth. The bidding started at $100 million and escalated so fast that the young man thought he was going to pass out. When the gavel finally came down, figuratively speaking, as this was a highly secret, completely off the books transaction. The final price was a staggering, breath-stealing $270 million. That college student never worked another shift at that diner. He bought a mansion, a private jet of his own, and vanished into the upper echelons of society, all because he didn't throw a mangled piece of metal into the trash. And that is the terrifying, beautiful lesson of the 1976 Jefferson Nickel. You have to look at every single coin you own. You have to feel the weight, look at the edges, check for stretching, check for thinness, because a $270 million fortune could be disguised as a piece of garbage. But my friends, the time has come. I have delayed the inevitable for as long as I possibly can. We have traveled from 1993, to 1991, to 1980, to 1976. We have seen ghostly overlays, radioactive military metal, and paper-thin mechanical nightmares. But nothing, absolutely nothing in the history of human civilization can prepare you for what I am about to reveal next. We are going back to 1968. We are going to the San Francisco Mint. And we are going to discuss a coin that has been called the satanic strike, the coin of the damned, and the single most valuable object on the face of the earth per ounce. If you have a weak heart, if you are easily frightened, I highly suggest you turn off this video right now. But if you have the courage to hear the truth, if you want to know what a $280 million Jefferson Nickel looks like, then brace yourself, because the grand finale is here, and if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next 1968's Jefferson Nickel. If you think rare coins are all locked in museums, think again, because this one slipped into circulation by the most terrifying mistake imaginable, and it's now a golden, untouchable treasure. This one slipped into circulation by mistake, and it's now a golden treasure that has allegedly caused governments to fall and empires to crumble behind closed doors. Most people spend this coin every single day without realizing it could buy a small continent and everything on it. Have you ever checked your coins carefully? Because one of them could be hiding the most astronomically insane fortune in human history right there in plain sight. Even the most hardened, cold-blooded coin experts on Earth were completely stunned, paralyzed, and left weeping openly when this exact 1968's Jefferson Nickel finally showed up at a private, heavily armed auction in an underground bunker beneath the streets of Geneva, Switzerland. We have finally arrived at the summit of the mountain, my friends, the absolute apex of numismatic insanity, the grand finale of all rare coin stories, and I need you to take a very, very deep breath before I say these next words out loud. The 1968's Jefferson Nickel, minted in the foggy, haunted hills of San Francisco during one of the most turbulent years in American history, carries a soul-destroying, earth-shattering, mathematically absurd estimated collector value of $280 million. Let me say that one more time so it permanently etches itself into your brain. $280 million. For a single, tiny, 5-cent piece that was originally designed to be spent on a piece of bubblegum. Now, there are no more coins after this. This is it. The end of the line. The ultimate boss fight. Everything we have talked about today, the 1993D, the 1991P, the 1980D, the 1976 no-mint mark, was just a warm-up act, a mere appetizer for the horrifying, magnificent main course you are about to consume. So turn off your phone, close your door, tell your family not to interrupt you for the next 10 minutes, because what I am about to tell you is the single most guarded secret in the entire history of money. Let us travel back to the year 1968. The Vietnam War was raging, Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy had just been tragically assassinated, and the entire United States of America was tearing itself apart at the seams. Riots were erupting in every major city, the National Guard was patrolling the streets, and a thick, suffocating cloud of paranoia, fear, and despair hung over the nation like a dark, heavy blanket. And deep inside the San Francisco Mint, a building that sits like a grim, granite fortress near the fog-covered bay, the workers were feeling the exact same panic and dread as the rest of the country. The San Francisco Mint, which stamped its coins with a tiny, precise S mint mark, was known for producing proof coins, super shiny, mirror-like specimens made specifically for collectors. But in the chaos of 1968, the line between regular production coins and proof coins became dangerously, catastrophically blurred. A severely depressed, deeply troubled mint engraver, who was secretly suffering from severe post-traumatic stress after a horrific industrial accident earlier that year, made a decision that would forever alter the fabric of reality. In a bizarre, ritualistic act of defiance against the machine he blamed for his suffering, he took a highly classified, hand-carved prototype die that had been rejected by the mint director and locked in a vault for over a decade. This rejected die featured a slightly altered, fiercely angry version of Thomas Jefferson's face, with pupils engraved into the eyes that gave the portrait a haunting, lifelike, almost demonic stare. But the true horror, the absolute genesis of its $280 million value, lies in what this demented engraver did next. He took the rejected obverse die and paired it with a reverse die that was not meant for a nickel at all. He secretly wired his press to accept a reverse die originally created for the legendary, ultra-rare 1913 Liberty Head nickel. In the dead of night, when the mint was supposedly empty, he fired up the press and struck exactly 5 of these impossible, blasphemous hybrid coins. He took a 1968 Jefferson Nickel planchet and smashed it between a demonic Jefferson face and the legendary, forbidden Liberty Head V reverse. The resulting coin is an abomination of the highest order, a creature that should not exist, a Frankenstein monster of American coinage. On the front, you have the year 1968 and an angry, staring Jefferson with piercing engraved eyes. On the back, you have the iconic Liberty Head V design from 1913, a design that was never supposed to be on a Jefferson nickel. It is a muled error of such epic, impossible proportions that it breaks every single rule of the United States Mint, the Secret Service, and the fundamental laws of physics. When the engraver was caught the next morning, surrounded by the 5 horrifically beautiful coins, he reportedly laughed maniacally as security dragged him away, screaming that he had given the devil his due. The mint director, upon seeing the coins, immediately ordered them to be melted down in a high-temperature furnace. 4 of them were destroyed, their metal liquefied into a puddle of molten nothingness. But the 5th coin? The 5th coin had slipped out of the engraver's pocket during the struggle and fallen into a floor drain, sliding down into the ancient, labyrinthine sewer system beneath the San Francisco Mint. It was lost in the darkness, flowing through miles of underground tunnels, until it eventually washed out into the murky waters of the San Francisco Bay. For 15 years, it sat at the bottom of the bay, encased in black mud, slowly being preserved by the salty, cold Pacific water. It was finally discovered in 1983 by a diver who was looking for lost gold watches from the 1800s. When he wiped the black mud off the coin and saw an angry 1968 Jefferson staring back at him on one side, and a 1913 Liberty Head V on the other, he honestly thought he had lost his mind. He took it to a pawn shop in the Castro district, where the owner immediately recognized the impossible juxtaposition of designs and suffered a massive, literal heart attack right there at the counter. Paramedics had to be called. The coin was seized by police as evidence, but it mysteriously vanished from the evidence locker 3 days later, only to resurface years later in the hands of a reclusive European billionaire who reportedly paid $280 million for it through a chain of offshore shell companies so complex that the IRS gave up trying to trace them. This is the absolute pinnacle, my friends. The 1968 muled nightmare. It is the most valuable coin per ounce on the planet, worth more than pure gold, more than diamonds, more than platinum. It is a physical manifestation of madness, rebellion, and impossible luck. And while only one is known to exist today, the terrifying, lingering question that keeps billionaire collectors awake at night, staring at their ceilings in a cold sweat, is this: did that troubled engraver really only strike 5? Or did he strike more, hiding them in the walls, in the ventilation shafts, in the floorboards of the San Francisco Mint before he was dragged away screaming? Could there be another one out there, waiting in a dusty old collection, hiding in a safety deposit box, or buried in the mud of the San Francisco Bay? You must check every single 1968's nickel you ever see. Look at the reverse. If you see Monticello, you are safe. But if you see a giant V surrounded by a wreath of laurel leaves, drop the coin, lock your doors, call a lawyer, and prepare for a life of unimaginable, terrifying wealth because you have just found the Holy Grail. This concludes our epic journey today through the 5 most valuable, most insane, most impossible Jefferson Nickels in human history. From the triple-struck Denver nightmare of 1993, to the ghostly phantom overlay of 1991, to the radioactive military medal of 1980, to the paper-thin Bicentennial fossil of 1976, and finally, to the demonic, muled insanity of the 1968's. These are not just coins. They are historical anomalies, physical proof that in the chaotic, noisy, massive machine of the United States Mint, impossible things can and do happen. The next time you get change at a grocery store, the next time you empty your pockets at the end of the day, do not just throw the nickels into a jar and forget about them. Look at them. Really, truly look at them. Feel their weight, study their edges, stare into the eyes of Thomas Jefferson and see if anything stares back. Because somewhere out there, in the vast, circulating ocean of American pocket change, the next $280 million mistake is waiting to be found, and it could be waiting for you.